I'm going to be talking to you today about the 7 key elements of negotiation and specifically how this ties in with real estate. If you don't know who I am, I'm Jon Bartlett. I'm with Preselling.com, and I've bought 8 figures of real estate for zero out of pocket in less than 2 years. And I'm building software and services to enable other people to do the same. So you can see all my stuff on the website as well. And yeah, I know this is probably a very small YouTube channel that you happen to come across. So I'm not looking at this from the lens of I'm a multi-billionaire. I'm just saying I've had a rapid amount of success in a short time. And a lot of that has probably been due to the fact that I'm able to negotiate well. So I'm going to try to break this down today because it's more of a science than an art, but there is a significant amount of an art aspect to it. So I'm going to be referencing my phone a little bit just so that I can make sure I'm articulating the correct points here. So hopefully that's not distracting. There are 7 key elements when it comes to negotiation, and I am borrowing this information from Harvard Business Review's book on this, which is 7 Elements of Negotiation by Jeff Weiss. It is probably one of the most effective books on negotiation out there because it is very, very simple on how it describes it. And I used the same book when I was doing my W-2 job where I saved almost $1 billion for the government. And I had to constantly be negotiating with people like Boeing, Northrop Grumman, et cetera. So the first of the 7 key elements is interests. And a lot of people get this one wrong. But what's so important with interests is what does the seller actually need? Not what do they think they want. It's what do they actually need. Now, it's important that you make them think that's what they want at the end of the day as well, because they're not going to say yes to something unless they feel like it's going to solve their problem. But if somebody says, I want to sell my house, then that's not necessarily their interest. Their interest is something a little bit deeper. And if you say, fine, you want to sell your house. Why? Well, I want to sell my house so I have cash. That's not really the true root interest. So the true underlying need might be something like, well, I have medical debt that I need to pay off by X amount of date. And if I don't pay off by this date, then I'm facing penalties, right? So their real interest isn't, do they want to sell the house? Because if they didn't have medical debt, then maybe they wouldn't sell the house. Their real interest is the medical debt. So you need to make it about the actual core interest. As Alex Ramosi says, pain is the pitch. So you need to be making it specifically about the medical debt in that scenario. You say, well, if I buy your house and I can get you cashed out, then it would solve your medical debt issue, right? You try to tie it to that. You could be a little bit more artistic, I suppose, on how you convey that. But the point is, it's not about selling the house. It's about something significantly deeper. If the seller is 90 years old, it's probably not about how they can go sell it and go blow a bunch of money doing whatever. It's probably so they can settle their estate in advance because they don't want to put that on to the next of kin. So asking for seller financing might not be a really smart idea if they're on their death step, essentially. Similarly, if somebody is in their 30s instead of 90s, if they're in their 30s and their job is taking them to a different location, it's not really about selling the house. It's about the fact that they don't want to own a property in another state where they're no longer residing in, and that is problematic for them. So if you make it specifically about the seller's interests, and you can focus on that, you will actually understand their problem deeper, probably, than they do. Because a lot of people think it's just, oh, I just want to sell the house. It's like, no, you don't want to deal with the problems. So what should you not do? Cause a lot of problems. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense on interests is, again, drill down to what they need, not necessarily what they say that they want. I hear that all the time. Oh, I want XYZ money. But it's like, you don't actually want all that cash right now because you might pay a lot in taxes or whatever. Okay, so the second item is going to be options. So this is going to be possible solutions that everybody comes up with. This isn't just saying, if I don't buy your property, I'm going to go to do something else. This is saying, I want to buy your property on option A, which is I'll pay $100,000 cash, and I'll close within 5 days. Or option B is I'll pay you a little bit more, but I want to be able to have a little more time for due diligence, and maybe we'll call it like $103,000, and I want to use the loan, right? So if it was something like that, those are 2 options. Biggest mistake I see most people do in real estate, whether they're wholesaling or buying for themselves, or even if they're an agent, is they don't push for multiple options. They just have the one option. So that's like saying, do you want to go get ice cream? And you're like, okay, yeah, what flavors are there? I'm like, chocolate. If that's the only flavor and you don't like chocolate, you probably don't want to go get ice cream. But if I say, well, they have lots of different flavors, what's your favorite? Then all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's pistachio or whatever, right? So you need to make it more than just a single monotone response of, this is my offer, right? It has to be something a little bit more robust so that you can target if there's a particular option they like more, you know that there's something more going on behind the scenes, and you begin to understand their position better. So always be putting in multiple options. The second one, or the third one, I'm sorry, is standards. So standards is really, really important because it's making the universe and the reality the bad guy rather than you. So if I say, I want to buy your house, but it's priced too high, you have it listed for 150K and I think it's worth 100K. That's the wrong way to say it. I shouldn't say, I think it's worth 100K. It's the market thinks it's worth 100K. Here's why. XYZ comps. Look at all these other comparable properties nearby that are the exact same thing as your house. Look at this appraisal. Look at these other real estate agents' other agents' point of view and like what their BOV, which is a broker opinion value. So you can do other things like that in order to make it about other situations and other people and other properties and other reality rather than you. So you are not the bad guy. Reality is the bad guy. That's very important because you're trying to have rapport with somebody if you're buying or if you're selling. And everything I'm talking about, by the way, this is not how to be a sweaty salesman and have a bunch of gotchas. This is how to actually solve the frickin' problem the right way. It's just most people approach it with a club rather than approaching it with more of like a surgical instrument. So it's really important that you understanding that I'm not advocating here's how to trick people into what you want. That's not the point of negotiation. The point of negotiation is delivering a true win-win for all parties. So when it comes to standards, if I'm telling a lender, no, I don't want to do that loan, the interest rate's too high, right? That's too high according to who? Me? No, I don't want to do that loan. It's 5 times higher than other people's loan or rate or whatever. So you need to make it about other people, not about yourself. Alternatives is going to be what is the other stuff that you can do if you don't reach an agreement. So an example would be a foreclosure. If you have a property that's in pre-foreclosure status, i.e. they are about to have the property taken away from them by the bank, technically sheriff, whatever. If they're about to have the property taken away from them, if they don't sell to you, their alternative is to be foreclosed upon. And then they will lose the property and they will not make any money really. That's a very strong alternative in your favor that they have. So what you can do is ensure for the timeliness of the transaction or the negotiation is that they are aware of their alternative. Hey, seller, if you don't sell to me, what is your plan? I'm going to go sell to other people. Interesting. That hasn't seemed to work so far. So what would you actually do? Oh, I just hold on to the property. Okay, so you're going to hold on to the property that you don't want to own, and you're going to continue to deal with the issues and continue to negatively cash flow. You get the point, right? So you can highlight their alternative to them and see if they actually have a better one. Oh, well, I'll just sell it to my buddy. My buddy's going to buy it for 40K. Great, thank you. Now I have information. So you can get a lot of information out of people by just listening, but it also lets you know how strong of a position they're in if they're able to provide that alternative. And there's a formal term within negotiation science, which is BATNA, which is Best Alternative to Negotiated Agreement. So if you have a strong BATNA, then it allows you to make a very strong decision. So for me, usually what it is if I'm looking to buy a property and someone's not playing ball, is I just go ahead and start off by saying, hey, I'm not able to buy everything on the planet all in the same month, right? I want to buy a lot of stuff, but you specifically are holding up my ability to go close more property. So if I don't get an answer out of you by this date and time at an acceptable term that we all agree to, then I'm going to go ahead and proceed with the other property that I'm looking at right now. Then it makes it more of a juxtaposition between you and somebody else. And now it's a good alternative that you are showing them. Again, options is saying I could buy it A or I could buy it with B, but alternative is saying if I don't do this, then I'm doing something completely different. It's good to keep your BATNA. Typically, if your BATNA sucks, don't tell people about it. If your BATNA is good, you do want to tell people about it. However, it can be seen as a little aggressive if you're shoving it down people's throat, essentially. So just be mindful as you present your alternatives. Next ones we have is for commitment. So for commitments, it's what are you saying you're going to do, and do you actually follow through on it? So if you say, hey, seller, I'm going to send you an offer tonight that's going to have everything we talked about in this conversation, and you do something that's not exactly that, you send it late, you send a different offer, you change the terms without talking to them, they're not going to trust you as much. So you want to constantly be having your commitments land on the mark every single time so that you're building trust and therefore credibility with the person you're negotiating with. Otherwise, why would you want to negotiate with somebody you don't trust, right? You're going to think they're going to try to take money from you or do something silly, right? So it's important that you're checking all the boxes the whole time. Next, we have communication, which is going to be how you're communicating and what you're communicating. So if it's bad news, you need to be mindful of how written communication can affect this. So if it's bad news, you may not want to just send them a text message with, weird emojis afterwards. They don't know what that means. You may want to just call them and say, hey, I got bad news for you, but here's some good news to go with it, right? And at least they can hear the intonation in your voice, like the fluctuation. They can tell what you're meaning and how you're meaning it. Because if I say, you look great, or you look great, or you look great, right? There's different ways of saying that. And now all of a sudden they have different meanings. So if you do it over the phone, it's like the equivalent of body language. You can actually see what they're saying. So if all of this was a transcript and you're reading it, the reason why it seems dry is you don't actually have enough context to have the full picture of what it is that somebody's trying to communicate. And because you have less of input for what the communications are trying to achieve, then it's not as effective and therefore you're not interested. That's why people prefer watching videos. All right, last bit is relationship. So relationship within negotiation is actually really, really important, and it compounds over time. So it's a bad negotiator assumes it's one negotiation and then that's it. You never deal with the person again. You're never going to see him again. You're never going to talk to him again. A good negotiator assumes that the door is always open and they may just walk back in. You may have to deal with them multiple times. I can tell you that I have funded multiple deals with the same people, and I've done them so fast. It's as fast as a 10-minute phone call. And one of my funniest ones was literally calling up somebody and I said, hey, got an investment opportunity for you. And they said, done. I didn't even get to finish the rest of the sentence. They said, done, let's do it. I'm like, great. That was the easiest capital raise I've ever done in my life. So when you can get to that point, it's because you're taking care of the relationship and you care about the relationship, not expressly the terms in the negotiation. So currently we're acquiring some property right now. And I actually told them, I was like, I want you to do this instead because it's going to make you more money. You can clearly see option A and B are very good, but I specifically want you to do this other option here because it's going to get you more, because it was with some equity in there as well, is going to get you more money. And if you make more money, you're going to want to continue to do stuff with me in the future. And I want to have you in my pocket for life so we can continue to make a ton of money together. That same person I've already done a deal with, so it was very easy. Additionally, I've gotten loans, done equity deals with some partners where we've done 4 deals before. Right. So I took care of people every single time within the relationship or within the negotiation through the aspect of taking care of the relationship. So if you're a seller trying to negotiate seller financing, for instance, you shouldn't be super angry with the person because they have to actually sign off on the debt at the end of the day. Additionally, there's something they may get really angry about. And if it says in the mortgage terms, you have to have a copy of insurance on file with the seller and you fail to send that, they may sue you over that. Right? So it's not about the one negotiation. It's about the entire lifetime that you may end up having with that person. So just always be mindful to take care of the relationship when you're in there. Additionally, side note, other people look at how you negotiate. So if other people see that you're taking care of somebody else when you don't necessarily need to, or you're on good terms with somebody else when you don't need to, they're going to look at you in a positive light. It's almost like, taking care of a waitress if you're on a date, right? That's actually like a really good heuristic of how people treat others is how do they treat service workers? And if you're in the service working industry, you understand what I'm talking about. But always make sure you're playing the infinite game that continues to play rather than just simply the one and done. So hopefully you guys found this very useful. If you did, do subscribe because I'm going to be dropping a lot of exclusive content and when I say exclusive, you'll understand what I mean. It's going to be only for people that are subscribed because it's going to be time delayed. So if you don't catch it when it actually drops, then you're not going to be able to view it and you're not going to be able to get the rewards that come out of that. So if you want to be able to learn more about this, specifically if you're in real estate and you're looking to go buy and own multifamily property for $0 out of pocket for free, no, I'm not charging a course on this. It is literally free. Then make sure to watch the rest of the videos, but you can also click on the link in the description in order to join the community. Thanks, y'all. I hope you appreciate this.